Hey, Thomas, that was a fantastic manifesto you gave the other day for human thinking. I hope everybody has seen it. I'm going to make sure to put the link to that in the description notes where we keep all the other goodies.
Well, I'm just going to give a shout out to my friend Rick, who called up and said that he thought it was amazing. Well, I was just trying to let people understand what I've been working with now for the last 6 months, trying to figure out what we can do about the high-tech war against us. And that's what the manifesto is about. Not to go to war with the war, but to actually point at the solution, which is a manifesto on human thinking. We need to get out of machine thinking and get back to human thinking.
Well, very good. Now, today we're doing something a little different. You know, I have just the most amazing collection of memes because when I put together Truth News headlines, my team is sending them in. We're selecting the very best. And so today I decided to put them together in a little collection. So if you are listening to this audio, you might want to look down and see them. And if you can't see them because of the device you're using, don't worry about it at all. Okay, so let's get started with the Trump tweets. February 9th, Adam Schiff, Glenn Simpson, and their Forrest Gump-like encounter in Aspen. What is Trump talking about there?
Now, that's a retweet of Sean Hannity, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to have to take this apart because poor Sean Hannity writes down, 10 words, and it really leads to quite a necessity to decode. But Trump put it up there because the next one also then Jim Jordan goes into that and gives more detail. So we're going to talk about that. But
let me read that Jim Jordan tweet then, because it's all the same category. Now, Jim tweets out, meets with Glenn Simpson, who hired Nellie Orr and Chris Steele and paid for the dossier. Doesn't disclose the meeting, says there's nothing wrong. Remember, Schiff demanded that Nunes be investigated for meeting with administrative officials. Double standard?
Yes, it's a double standard. Now that the Democrats are in charge of the House, and Nunes is no longer the head of the House Intelligence Committee, and Schiff is, good old Shifty Eyes, we're going to have to break this down because Shifty Eyes has already told the world through backdoors leaks. It's constant leaks from the Democrats. Constant. It's as if they live at the mainstream media. They live at the New York Times. They live at the Washington Post. It's like that's where they go. That they must set up bunks there, cots for them to sleep in, because the second that Adam Schiff knows anything, it's told to the world in a completely twisted form. Now,
but anything that opposes them, like these things that we want redacted and these emails and all of that, no, we can't have that.
Oh, no. That's been given over to Horowitz to hide. So let's just go into this.
But I thought Huber was going to save the day.
Huber and Horowitz, I think, are at a spa somewhere in Palm Springs or something. I'm not sure. I think they're hanging out in the hot tub
with all their other senior executive service fellows.
Correct, because they aren't doing any work, and now you notice that the senior executive service term comes up in testimony of people who about this whole conspiracy. They go before Congress and they are always blaming it on the senior executive service members. Isn't that amazing? Finally it comes out. Anyway, Adam Schiff is heading the House Intelligence Committee now, and he has 85 things he wants to investigate of Trump. Now, I want to point something out. That's after the intelligence community spent over $100 million in 3 separate reports, and then about $40 million on the Mueller special counsel investigation. The Senate committee went through years now of trying to find a crime. Nothing ever found, and Schiff now starts in with 85 separate points he wants to investigate. All of them have been investigated. The only good news here is that Trump is so clean, nothing can be found. Now, let's go into this. When Adam Schiff met with Glenn Simpson, that was a crime because at the time, Glenn Simpson was one of the people that they were investigating through the House Intelligence Committee. So when he met with him, it wasn't a Forrest Gump meeting. It was a complete coup d'etat meeting. It was, let's remember, who is Glenn Simpson? When he went before the Senate Intelligence Committee, they made it a closed-door meeting. And then Dianne Feinstein took those closed-door proceedings, the exact proceedings, and released them to the press. Never done before. This is never, except for Schiff. that's never really been done, is to take a document directly out of a closed-door meeting and give it to the press. Why? Because Glenn Simpson was leading the charge on this. But I'll get into that in a second. But Glenn Simpson, in his closed-door meeting, gave the rest of the conspirators the alibi story that they were supposed to go with. And they didn't. And it's coming unglued. So Dianne Feinstein stepped down from the Senate Intelligence Committee, and now Mark Warner is the senior Democrat on that committee. And he has committed all kinds of crimes committed in relationship to this conspiracy. Now, let's remember, when we say Glenn Simpson, people say, the author of the dossier. Yes, his wife, Mary Jacoby, came out and said that they authored it together, and do not discredit Glenn Simpson's ability to write and her ability to write, and that he's a genius and that he is one of the greatest propagandists of our time. And so give him the credit. No, wrong. Incorrect. Here are the authors. So when you say Adam Schiff was talking to Glenn Simpson, remember, handled the $12 million from the DNC, which he then paid Christopher Steele $150,000 or so. And then he kept a lot of that money paid by Mark Elias through Perkins Coie for Podesta and Hillary Clinton, the DNC. And so I say Glenn Simpson was basically short-sheeting, that's a term we use in the military, for Christopher Steele, not giving him enough money. Look, he got $12 million. He gave him $150,000. So Glenn basically was cheating him. So what happened? Christopher Steele started charging $150,000 for each installment. Now, when we say Glenn Simpson and the dossier, remember, it's not him that was the only author. We have to add Mary Jacoby, his wife, Nellie Orr. She quit her job at the government to go work for Fusion GPS because she was a Russian translator working with open source open source, a program that the CIA was using. And she got a ham radio so that she could tune in to current news in Russia to help write the 17 installments.
Plus, you know what dog she snuggles up to at night?
Nellie Orr, that'd be Bruce Orr.
Yeah, now isn't that cozy?
And Bruce Orr, one of the head 500 SES top lawyers in the DOJ.
Employed. Who is still there?
Still can't fire him.
Can't fire him.
Oh, can't fire him.
And let us not forget Chris Steele. Let's walk this right back to who is his boss.
Oh, well, I'm going there.
All right,
Hang
go
on.
there.
So the authors of the dossier, it's Glenn Simpson, Mary Jacoby, Nellie Orr, Cody Shearer, Sergei Millian, James Comey, Felix Sater, Franklin Furor, Victoria Nuland, Stroken Page, Stephen Halper.
Was that Stroking Page?
Yes.
Okay.
He certainly was.
No, was he really?
Supposedly.
That's their cover.
Alexandra Chalupa, Stephen Halper, Sir Dearlove, Joseph Mifsud, Natalia Veselnitskaya, Andrew McCabe, John Brennan. Those are the ones that I know for a fact were part authors. And this has all been out in the news, and it's all been admitted.
Even in fake news.
Even
Not
in fake
just
news.
the independent media. Everybody in the freaking country knows what happened here.
Now, remember, Adam Schiff was part of the Gang of Eight. The Gang of Eight is the group of two members from each of the intelligence committees, and then the leadership from the Senate and the House. And so the Gang of Eight are always kept apprised. They were kept apprised early on of what was going on by multiple people. John Brennan completely briefed them in July of 2016. So from then on, Adam Schiff was looking for all elements of the dossier because he was investigating this, and he certainly knew that meeting with Glenn Simpson was a crime and that it would have to be reported to the committee, and it would have to take him down from the committee. He would not be able to sit on that committee as the senior representative from the Democratic Party had they known that he had a secret meeting with Glenn Simpson at a meeting in Colorado. Now, what was that about? Because Adam Schiff was looking for all the elements of the dossier. We know this because he was pranked by two pranksters on the phone saying that they had the dirt on Trump and the very document he was looking for. Because from early on, when they decided to create the Russian dossier, the whole PP phenomena, was based upon a rumor that somewhere in Europe there was a video of Trump with prostitutes in a hotel room, them peeing on him. No, it was another person. They finally found it. Sergei Milian spent $100,000 looking all over Europe, and then finally somebody found it. Victoria Nuland was spent money looking all over Europe for it. Everybody wanted that tape because they thought it would take Trump out, right? So that's what was really going on, a coup d'etat. And basically, it was not a Forrest Gump-like encounter. It was an espionage, counterintelligence, very clear, fraudulent, illegal meeting. And what did they talk about? They talked about his testimony and that they're going to bring him back. And now,
who's the his?
Adam Schiff and Glenn Simpson talked, and they said that Adam Schiff would bring Glenn Simpson back as soon as he got control of the House. That's what the discussion was. I guarantee it. But it doesn't really matter.
No, because they can all lie. You know, they can lie in Congress to each other, and everybody can lie to them, and nobody gets prosecuted, and there's actually a law that they can lie.
Yes, and we pointed that out, and
So
you keep pointing it out with your beautiful memes showing that all these people act with impunity and lie because nobody's being perjured. And so Matt Gaetz and Rand Paul have said, sorry, we don't want a two-tier standard, a double standard going on here. If you lie before Congress, it's perjury, you go to jail, just like they did with Manafort and like they're doing with Roger Stone.
Well, they did this in 1996. They snuck this in, and only they know about it. And so it's becoming just so apparent that the only people that wind up in jail are like poor little George Papadopoulos, maybe because his attorney is so bad. I mean, you have to be a really bad attorney to not know about this little rule that's hidden for the elite to get out of jail free, but people like George can't. So the reason I say this is because we just saw Matt Whitaker give testimony. Or, well, no, it wasn't a testimony. It was the oversight committee, and he was just reporting in. But the thing is we don't know if he's lying. He could be telling the truth. But if you're in a place where lying is legal, not even truth tellers will be believed.
Good old Matt Whitaker demonstrated that he knows that those are dog and pony shows. Nothing ever happens because he just got through watching Rod Rosenstein and Jeff Sessions and others lie, and basically obfuscate and confabulate and just completely make a mockery of it. And he made a mockery of it and stuck it in their face, which was beautiful. Now, those names I listed, 20 of them or so, are the authors of the dossier, but that isn't the list of those who endorsed the dossier, which is about 20 or 30 other people, including Obama and most of his administration. We know this because they were just like Adam Schiff. They were working hard to make sure that that dossier got everything in it that they could possibly find so that something could take Trump down. Anything to take Trump down. And in their absolute desperation, they made many mistakes. And they left a huge trail, like the $12 million paid from the DNC to Fusion GPS. And then when Fusion GPS was sued, and Christopher Steele was sued by Alexei Gubarev and the three owners of Alpha Bank and other people, it starts to come out because in their depositions, they're trying to cover their rear. And so they are trying to blame it on other people. So what do we have here in the second tweet? The second tweet is about... Yes, it's from Jim Jordan, and it is a reminder that when Devin Nunes was walking along in a hall, someone came up to him and said, come to the White House, I want to show you something in this SCIF, in the Secured Compartmental Information Facility. In other words, the top secret room for information. They took him there and they showed him that Susan Rice had unmasked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names consistently for a long time, and it was in a log. And Susan Rice even came out and said she didn't do anything wrong, and that the thing that was wrong was someone looked at the log. And so Devin Nunes was kicked off of being the head, the Republican head, the majority head of the House Intelligence Committee for a while, because he simply went and found out the truth. And then he said he was disturbed by this and said that he was going to investigate this in the Intelligence Committee, and they kicked him off for about 6 months. And so now Adam Schiff should be kicked off. That's what these two tweets are saying.
But wait a minute. I thought it was Samantha Powers that did all of the unmasking.
That was another hundreds even. Well, Susan Rice was absolutely institutionalized masking. But Samantha Powers, who had no right to do unmasking, did hundreds and hundreds of them, more than anybody has ever actually recorded in the book besides Susan Rice.
Maybe she was doing it for her husband. Her husband is Cass Sunstein, who's Obama's good friend, who wrote this book called Nudge, which shows us this Saul Alinsky path of keep nudging us little bit by little bit by little bit over the years to their leftist agenda. So maybe she was doing it for hubby, who wanted it to give to Obama.
Whoever she was doing it for, it was illegal. And now, after the fact, Obama passed a rule saying that every intelligence agency and everybody can access raw data from the NSA. After the fact. The dossier was after the fact. Remember, it was the insurance policy. They didn't even have a hearing on it. It was there sitting in a file so that they could later say, oh yes, we did file that. It wasn't what drove the warrantless, and they are warrantless, wiretapping of the entire Trump team, everybody up and down, 2 jumps up and down, everybody. That's everyone in the Trump, and anyone who ever talked to Trump during the election was being wiretapped. They were being unmasked. They were being wiretapped. They were being surveilled. Call it what you want. It's illegal. Now, remember, Stephen Halper is the person who told Christopher Steele, with the help of Sir Richard Dearlove, MI6 British spies, and they were paid. Stephen Halper is a British and American citizen. He was paid over $1 million, and we are the ones who busted him on that. They didn't know it was that much. They thought it was $400,000. We found the exact 3 places under the exact 3 fake auspices that he was paid that money. And this guy is as crooked as anybody. He owns 3 CIA banks, just a walk from Capitol Hill. He is nothing but a front guy for the rogue CIA, and he's hiding under the British intelligence, and he worked with British intelligence to cause Christopher Steele to come and make the first lie in January of 2016, because in December of 2015, the DNC found they didn't know what to do about the breach, the 2 breaches they'd had, and they didn't know what to do with the fact that a report had come out saying that Hillary will not win because of her Russian connections, especially uranium-1. So the entire Russian dossier was created as a smokescreen for Hillary. Now, we pointed out also, not that Stephen Halpern was just paid $1 million, but that when Christopher Steele was coming to meet with Bruce Orr, he met with him 17 times. There were 17 installments to the dossier. Each time he came, he delivered it to Bruce Orr, and he got paid through Comey $50,000 in installments. We now know that Comey lied again, massively lied repeatedly about this, saying he was getting ready to pay $50,000 for the last installment, which was at the one he was buying was in December of 2016. Lie, lie, lie. You started paying when John McCain came to the Senate Intelligence Committee and told Dianne Feinstein to get busy on this. And we'll go into another tweet here about that specific committee and Richard Burr and Mark Warner, because it's unbelievable. They were more active. That committee was so active that they interviewed hundreds of people trying to find dirt on Trump, and then they helped create the friggin' dossier. The Senate Intelligence Committee helped create the dossier. You're not going to hear anybody else tell you that, but it's the truth, and in a minute I'll tell you why. And had Adam Schiff been the head of the House Intelligence Committee, he would have worked right alongside with them. He was working alongside, but on his own, because he wasn't the chairman, and so that's what these 2 tweets are about.
Well, wait a minute. Before we go on, where does Daniel Jones fit into this?
Daniel Jones was Dianne Feinstein's assistant. When Dianne Feinstein quit and quit as the senior member of the Senate Intelligence Committee and went over to the Judiciary Committee.
So she could cover her butt.
Yes. So she could cover her rear because she's old, she knows. And she was about ready to be popped because John McCain had come to her in January of 2016. These are all Democratic representatives for Podesta and Hillary. They were all worried. Comey was in on meetings. Biden was there. Susan Rice was there. They were all... Loretta Lynch was there. Valerie Jarrett was there. They were all 100% complicit in this coup. First off, in the election meddling, in the coup to literally steal President-elect Trump's documents from being president-elect, and then the active coup, which is still going on to this day, And those are those people that I mentioned were the ones who endorsed the dossier. They endorsed the dossier, but they said they would never make it public. But then accidentally Christopher Steele blew it, and BuzzFeed released the whole document. And when they did, they got sued. And when they did, Christopher Steele got busted because the FBI said, you weren't supposed to tell the press this. They were having meetings with the FBI representatives, with DOJ representatives, with Christopher Steele, with Fusion GPS representatives, with the press. And they would read to them these releases. And then the press would go out in their own words and tell what each one of the installments said. Okay? You can't get a bigger conspiracy than this. So someone in one of these tweets today says, or in a past tweet said, this is the biggest scandal and conspiracy in U.S. history. We've been saying that since the beginning.
Well, it's bigger than that, because if you take Chris Steele, you walk him back to Stephen Halper, you walk yourself right back into the British monarch. And then as we uncovered things, we began to see that it is the Brits that still control America in so many ways. You can't even unsee it once you've seen it. And that they were behind the whole conspiracy, the planning of the overthrow of Donald Trump, in which I keep pointing out is this Strzok and Page story that they were lovers was probably more like they were planning an act of assassination of Trump in those tweets, and that's why we don't see those released either.
And we also pointed out a long time before that the DOJ said that those tweets had been completely scrubbed of all personal remarks, of all attachments, and all references to senior executive service members.
Right, but Peter Strzok got to strike the tweets himself. So that means that now when you go and you're held for criminal charges, they're going to give you all the evidence that they have, and you can take out what you don't like and then give it back to them, and then they'll use that against you.
And Strzok said this in his testimony before Congress, and then it was confirmed.
Was he lying or telling the truth?
No, he was telling the truth. Because
how do we know?
Because it makes sense. Michael Horowitz came out and said, yes, I did allow Peter Strzok to go through the 55,000 emails before they all got lost, and all the other ones which they say don't exist.
The texts.
And screen them. So the only ones we got
Can
were
we
the
take a
ones.
pause for just a moment? Do you realize how horrific that is? That he was allowed to strike out and remove the text that he didn't want us to see?
Which you say are an assassination attempt, which I agree.
I'm telling you, people, that's the next cause we're going to have as patriots. We demand to see the text in full, unredacted, because I have not seen one indication at all that the two of them were lovers. And you can't strike out a lot of this stuff. If you were really lovers, they would all be in your text. It's nowhere to be found.
As a matter of fact, Lisa Page got so upset with Strzok.
Hey, Lisa, when you go to prison, you won't be able to take your children. You know that?
Oh, that's right.
You need to come out and make a deal. You're a mother. You have children. They at least need to have some relationship with you. And you're sitting over there in your stinking butt covering for these slime balls. You need to stand up right now, go to the president's office, and confess your sins, girl.
The Democrats say it is immoral to take away a mother and a child, or a father and a child at the border, who we don't even know if they're mother and child, father and child, because they brought no documents. If they brought no documents, that's not their child, okay? And so it's immoral to take them away from each other. So then they started locking them up, and then it was immoral to lock them up. So Lisa Page, are you going to take your child to prison with you because it's immoral to separate you? This is the kind of logic of the very people who constructed this conspiracy and left a trail, a gigantic back trail that an idiot could follow. Why they have not been prosecuted is because we're talking about 30, 40 people that were part of this conspiracy. And we have them absolutely red-handed, bloody-handed.
Okay, so the next tweet reads, a Judicial Watch released State Department docs showing the Clinton-linked Podesta group run by Tony Podesta, the brother of John Podesta, who was a White House counselor and then was Clinton's 2016 campaign chair, worked for a pro-Russian Ukrainian political group, the Party of Regions. Of course, all of us out here know the Podestas famously for their pizza parties.
Now, we started yelling this the second that a special counsel was appointed. We said that the low-hanging fruit Paul Manafort, would go to jail. What for? Moving money out of Cyprus' offshore account because he worked for 3 oligarchs who were part of the Party of Region in Ukraine. And so did John Podesta and Tony Podesta at the same exact time. Both of their lobbying groups, Manafort and Gates, and they had another name for their company, and then Tony's, the Podesta brothers had 2 other companies under their name, but they're actually theirs. So there were 5 companies that were paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to do propaganda in Ukraine because, well, first off, Paul Manafort had already shown through Yanukovych that he could get him reelected even after he had been kicked out with the first Orange Revolution. And then the Maidan Revolution basically was another George Soros, Victoria Nuland, Department of State, John Kerry, Loretta Lynch, planned CIA covert operation. And this is a fact, folks. As a matter of fact, we have Victoria Nuland at one point when Alexandra Chalupa, who's on the committee for the Democratic National Committee. She's also in the Atlantic Council Committee with Dmitry Alperovich, the Russian the only person who ever got to see the DNC server was a Russian criminal who had been turned into an FBI asset who then works for CrowdStrike, and that's Dmitry Alperovich.
Hey, where is Dmitry Alperovich and his father Michael? I haven't seen him around lately in the news.
After the Ukrainian scandal, when again he used outdated material and blamed it all on the Russians, and it came to light that it was all fake. He didn't do anything. He's just a bloviator. And CrowdStrike was called in there too for Ukraine. Why? Because Ukraine was our ally, because we don't want to run Russian oil out of Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan and through Russia through Ukraine to Europe. They wanted to stop that. And so what happened was the Americans wanted to get in, and they did. So Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was put on the largest gas company, which runs these pipelines through Ukraine. A paid position on the largest oil and natural gas board in Ukraine. It was after Joe Biden was given the highest order that you can be given, where he literally, they still use the Nazi salute. The Party of Regions was the party supporting Hitler and the Nazis. Okay? They are complete fascists. Antifa, the Antifa flag and the Antifa mottos are taken from the Party of Regions. It's a fascist party. And Joe Biden and John Kerry and Victoria Nuland and Obama are all best friends with those oligarchs who are ruthless murderers. Okay? And then they're getting paid off because they're turning Russia into the oligarch thing, and then what happens, whoever gets in with that oligarch in America and does the deal with Goldman Sachs or Lehman Brothers or whoever, whatever, they then get their piece to the pie. And that's what happened there. And so what happened, Podesta and Manafort would keep getting their piece to the pie for being lobbyists. And they were actually working at one point against each other and then another point together. Now, don't forget that Daniel Jones opened when Fusion GPS was busted because Christopher Steele had revealed to the world, and he never was supposed to reveal the whole document. He gave it to BuzzFeed. That then caused Fusion GPS to be thrown out of the mix. So then Daniel Jones quit being a staffer for the Intelligence Committee for Dianne Feinstein, opened his own company, Pincorder Group, got $50 million from Hollywood people and some other rich people in America, and from Oleg Deripaska, the aluminum oligarch, giant Russian interference in our election, who has been used also by the CIA as an asset. So once again, we have a CIA asset who goes back and forth. One minute, they try to use him to go after Trump. The next minute, he says, forget it, I'm not going after Trump, you're stupid, that doesn't hold water. And then the next minute, what do they have him doing? Donating money to the disinformation group, the opposition research group, Pincorder Group, and Daniel Jones. And now that has been brought forth into the public, and he is considered the Russian spy that is behind the election rigging and meddling. This is all true. He is, but not in the way they think. But yes, he was. He was very much part of that. And so what we get to see now with the Party of Regions is that the Ukrainians go back and forth between supporting Putin and not supporting Putin, depending upon whether they're going to get a big cut on this oil pipeline. The oil pipeline now has sanctions on it. So Nord Stream 1, the pipeline that came out of Russia and through the North Sea into Germany to Angela Merkel, has now supplanted that. So the Russians really don't care about the sanctions in Ukraine. So Ukraine is crumbling. So now, after two major revolutions where we paid, and Victoria Nuland came out when she was mad that Alexandria Chalupa's $27 million accusation that Manafort stole money from the World Bank was found to be false, and the ledgers were found to be false. Victoria Nuland came out in the public and said, we did not spend billions of dollars to create those revolutions in Ukraine to have Paul Manafort win this case. First off, it was a fake case. Second off, Manafort didn't do it. Third off, we know who did do it, and she's the same person who helped with the Russian dossier, Alexandria Chalupa, because she worked with Dmitry Alperovitch to create the Russian smokescreen to help Hillary not be taken down in the election because of her Russian connections. And we pointed out all the other Russian connections, which she did when she was Secretary of State, that make her the best friend of Russia. So, if there was any Russian collusion, yes, there certainly was. And was there Ukrainian Ukrainian involvement in Russian? In what they called Russian meddling in the election? Yes, and it was Ukrainian. But it's not the way that they thought. And don't forget that Podesta had sat on a board called Joule Energy, which was a Russian company, Russia gave them tens of millions of dollars. And then when he got caught, he gave it to his daughter, I believe it was, and then he slimed his way out of it. And so he also slimed his way out of not filing as a foreign agent when he worked for Ukraine, not filing as a Russian agent when he worked for the Clinton campaign. So when Mueller investigated him and his brother, they allowed them after the fact to file as foreign agents, though in fact Manafort had that charge brought against him because he hadn't filed as a foreign agent, because they're not really foreign agents, and it wasn't really that way. They gave some advice to these three oligarchs. Okay, that's what it came down to. And it was, they paid like $20 million to get the advice from these two opposition research companies. But why wouldn't they, when they saw Manafort take the previous president of Ukraine, who had been thrown out, and later he brought him back to the same position, he became president again. Manafort had that much power. That's the reason they had to take down Manafort.
Okay, we're going to break this session up because I'm looking ahead, and we've got a lot of tweets here, and I don't want to cut you off at all, so we're going to end this one. And folks, you'll pick it up, and there'll be another audio that follows this one.